Hello, you sassy scholars. Let's talk about my very good buddy, Henry David Thoreau. We always say Thoreau down here, but in Concord, Massachusetts, where you can go and visit Emerson's house, and you can go and visit Walden Pond, and then you can visit Louisa May Alcott's Orchard House. Great place to visit. They told me that it's pronounced Thoreau, so I try to correct myself and get it right. Names are important. So we're going to be talking about my good buddy. I call him Uncle Henry, um, Uncle Henry David, Uncle Thoreau, whatever you want. Call him whatever you want. So he is iconic because he really lived and preached this idea of living off the land, living independently, and, being his own person. And then you realize that he was only like 2.5 miles from town, and he would walk to town every day where his mom baked him pies and did his laundry. And then he would go talk to Emerson. So, like, we always think of him as being this secret hermit off in the woods, but he really wasn't. He was living on Emerson's land. The land was owned by Emerson. And, yeah, so there's that. And one of the reasons he went to Walden Pond is because he accidentally started a forest fire with an unattended campfire. And he ended up burning down about 300 acres of land. So he felt bad about it, of course, as anyone would. And the people in town razzed him when he would go in, when he was living at Walden, and he would go in town. People would be like, starting any forest fires out there? They would be ribbing him a little bit. So so we have this like sort of picture of him as, living off in the wilderness. Not so much. Not so much. But he is important, and he did really believe in living, individually. He never married. Um, you know, he did live off the land for that. He was out there just for 2 years. And then then he got an invitation from the Emersons to stay with them while Ralph went off to tour Europe. So let's talk about who he is. So he lived from 1817 to 1862, and he was a philosopher, a naturalist, and a transcendentalist. So remember, those transcendentalists believed in that that God is inside of you, and that we're part of nature, and nature is part of us, and that sort of connection. And so he was a prominent figure in that movement, and that movement emphasized individualism and intuition and the innate goodness of both people and nature. So the writings he has advocate for self-reliance, nonconformity, and the pursuit of truth through personal experience. So the two things he's most famous for writing are Walden, which is what we're going to be exploring with the game, Walden a Game, and then civil disobedience, which we normally do read in this class, but because we're playing the game and it's a short class, I want to give you all the time you need to actually play the game. So we won't be reading civil disobedience, but if you like this sort of thing, it is a really great text. And so just to know that Walden, which the full title is Walden, A Life in the Woods, was published in 1854. So we're talking, roughly 10 years before the American Civil War. So there's lots going on politically. There's lots going on in the world. Walden, like the other transcendentalists, vehemently opposed slavery and wanted to see it come to an end. He ended up going to jail because he refused to pay his poll tax because that money was going to support a war. So, he put his money where his mouth was. He did, have to go to jail, and then his aunt bailed him out of jail. So anyway, Walden chronicles his 2 years. It was an experiment. He called it an experiment of living a simple and self-reliant life in a small cabin near Walden Pond. He built the cabin. He planted crops, mostly beans, and then he would, do a little bit of farming and then a little bit of reflecting, and he would wander around and, look at all different kinds of things and think about them and write about them. And then civil disobedience is more an essay advocating for individual resistance to unjust laws and government policies. And really, if he were a blogger today, he would just be going on and on and on about all the injustices in the world. So, his essays are, really did influence future leaders and activists. And Martin Luther King actually cited him as an influence. So, so his work is really, really important. There's lots to know about him, and I wanted to come up with some fun facts. Um, and probably the best fact is that he started a fire first, and then the second best fact is that he would go into town and get pies from his mom, and she did his laundry for him. Not too unlike my own children, to be honest. But I just think that we've sort of built him up to be this, like this hermit, and he really isn't a hermit. He was actually quite social. He loved to have discussions with Emerson, and there's obviously nothing wrong with that. But it's interesting. I'll be interested to see in your projects whether you think that the game, Walden, really reflects the meaning and spirit of the text. So, and remember, in that game, you don't, if you're not a good game player or you're afraid of playing games or whatever, somebody can play the game while you watch and take notes. That's fine. You can have this, can be a group activity that you do with your kids or your friends. Fine with me. Just so long as you play it. You have to play one full year, so you have to do all 4 seasons because different things happen in different seasons. I've created a tutorial that I posted in Brightspace for you, and I'm eager to see how it all works out. There are 2 quizzes. They are identical, but it's a pre and post game quiz. Please don't cheat on that. There's no need to cheat on it. It doesn't impact your grade in any way. It's just data collection for the grant, seeing what you know going in and then what you learn coming out. No need to cheat, no need to, look up the answers or anything like that, because just doing it gives you the credit. All right, so I'm excited about this. I love Uncle Henry. I often think about Uncle Henry when I'm in the woods. I think about Emerson when I'm in the woods. I spend a lot of time in nature. If you haven't figured this out yet, I'm an American romantic and a transcendentalist. So, I'm all about this work, and I'm very excited to share it with you. All right. I can't wait for our next activity. See you soon, sassy scholars.